Well, it's a beautiful, beautiful day in Montrose at the Montrose studio. And those are the San Juan Mountains down there with Mount Sneffels. Hope you can see that. But it's, I don't want to call it a fall afternoon. It's still pretty warm. It's supposed to be 85 today. Evenings and mornings there's a crispness in the air. But, or mornings, I shouldn't say evenings, but in the mornings anyway. Rabbit brush is starting to bloom. Well, let's go in and do a painting. Okay, I think I've got a painting picked out to do, and it's going to be a vertical. I wanted to do an 11 by 14 or maybe a 9 by 12, but this is a this is a 9 by 12, which would be fine. The only questionable part about this is that it's got that really dark toning to the surface, and I'm not real sure how that's going to work, but I guess the only way we can find out is to try it. So there's a little experimentation that you get to be a part of. Experimentation, an experiment. Being that it's 85 out there, I've got the air conditioning on, but it's set on a equal boost. It's supposed to minimize the amount of time that it runs. So it'll just be an occasional interruption, which we'll see what we can do about. So here's the photo that I'm going to be painting from. And I guess part of what I like about it, typically I use a burnt sienna and ultramarine blue for a drawing medium, but because this panel is so dark. So this area in here, pretty much in shadow, which is great. And then we've got these trees that are very dark. We've got there's a few over here. And then we've got the orange is very, very orange in the photograph. And could very well have been out in the reel as well. So, but there's some blue sky in here. It looks to me from the photograph anyway that this kind of drops off going this way. It'd be interesting to see how this works. I wish I was talented enough to just say confidently, oh yeah, this is a no-brainer. Whenever the question of how do you know when a painting is done comes up, I always am reminded of the Richard Schmid says that if you picture in your mind what you want it to look like, then when it reaches that point, you know you're done. Well, yeah, for me, that's easier said than done. I pretty much can tell when I'm done. But as far as picturing it in my mind, that's hard. So we've got this blue, this cobalt blue, beautiful, beautiful blue. And the orange from these trees are gonna so there's some patterns here that can be developed between the foliage and the blue. I'll start with that. What I'll do is get the orange laid in, and then we can add some more sky holes later. Yellows. Aspens are just so beautifully seen when they're backlit because the leaves are just luminous. I'm using some of this Indian yellow that I'm such a fan of. I can tell right now what that dark background is going to force me to do is get the paint kind of thick so it covers. And as always, when I'm painting from a photograph, I like to use the photograph as inspiration, but then ultimately I'll break away from it. I'll if I've got it on the computer, I'll turn the computer off. And if it's a paper photograph, I'll just turn it over. Because I don't want to become a slave to the photo. I want to make it look like a painting. And I have found, for me anyway, that if I keep referring to the painting or to the photograph, I tend to continue to work striving to make it look like the photograph. One of the difficult things for an artist, it depends on what your intentions are when you're doing a painting. And if you want it to be photographically realistic, and when people compliment you on, oh, it looks just like a photograph, you can take that as a compliment. But all too often, I paint in a manner that is representational, traditional. It's not photorealistic. Maybe leans toward impressionism, which is fine. It's if I got that compliment, I'd be happy. But when you comment on somebody's painting and you say, oh gosh, it looks just like a photograph, that's not necessarily a compliment. All depends on what the artist had in mind when he's making the painting. So I just bring that up as something to think about, be aware of. I need to get some darks in here, especially down in here, this foreground. And then now in the photograph, it shows a dark in here that I'm guessing to be a spruce tree. And that'd be a good placement for one. When I take photographs, I usually have in mind what a painting might be. So I typically will look at composition or set it up as composition. Set up the composition toward to be desirable. One of the things you want to be aware of in your placement of objects in a painting is the rule of thirds. So there's a third, so you come in a third, there it is. Now, if I go this way, that's a third, there's a third, be the intersecting lines. And this tree doesn't quite fit that, but if I bring it down a little bit, that might help. One of the things that I like to try to pay attention to is developing the distance. An artist has 5 balls, I think, in terms of a juggler. I'm thinking in terms of, you have composition, values, which is the light and the dark, the drawing, color temperature, and design. Sometimes I forget to keep all the balls, so I drop a ball and haven't been paying attention. So right now I'm just blocking in some shapes, getting some color in, just trying to see how this is all going to come together, and if there's significant modifications I need to make somewhere. At some point here we'll stop and take a step or two back, and I'm going to paint this kind of like I would if I were out on location. The reason I'm paying attention to the studio paintings right now is this is coming up on the middle of September, and there's not a whole lot of color showing out there yet. And I've got people, customers, hopefully, that are interested in paintings of fall colors. So let's take the camera back, step back a little bit here, and we'll see how this looks. This is see how the shapes are tying in together. And I think so far, I guess I don't have any complaints or any room for significant adjustments or anything. So I guess we'll go with this. Okay, here we go again. So one of the things that I'd mentioned in a previous video was softening. And this is a sable brush of some kind, just an old, it might not even be real sable, but it's fine, it's not a bristle. So you can see what's happening here. Sometimes, often if you're not careful, this can be overdone. And sometimes a bristle brush is better suited, but the key to it is you need to keep it dry. And if it gets loaded up with paint, then you got to clean it and dry it off. I'm just wanting to get some of this into the sky so we can kind of see what that looks like. There's a lot of dark sections in the scene because it's backlit. And so that makes some of this in the back very bright, and the stuff up front, closest to us, a little bit on the dark side. Now see, this is getting more than what I would care for in the way of being soft. But I'm going to lay some more paint over the top of that. And that's going to thicken it up. So some of this in here, in the photo it doesn't look like this, but in fact I'm not even looking at the photo very much right now, but I'm going to make this kind of a valley floor. So it kind of looks like it slopes down that way, and that tree will be on the ground floor here. So now, last time, one of the other videos, I got into some palette knife work, and let's see what that does. There's different sizes. I'm not an accomplished palette knife painter. but I like to use it a little bit for some accent texture. The beauty of oil paints, you make a little flub here or there, just paint over it or wipe it off. Or like Bob Ross used to say, accept a happy little accident. So we got to decide, we got to make this foliage kind of look like it belongs to a tree. So I might have to get some tree trunks going. Now I'm bringing up the photo again because I kind of liked some of the placements of these trees. See, by having these trees up front like this, it pushes that back. Yeah, kind of like that. Try to paint with intention. Now, not only with my brush strokes, but also the painting you decide to do today or where you're going to go. It's going to help the outcome, the day, the outcome for the day, be much more meaningful, I guess. If you had some sort of, or for me, I shouldn't say what you should do. For me, it has more meaning, completeness, satisfaction out of the day. I could say, yeah, I wanted to experience this, I wanted to do that, and I got it done. So you should lead your life that way, but I won't get into that. See, these trees can't be too perfect, too straight, and not too crooked. I like to have at least one aspen close enough and big enough that I can get some pretty neat detail in the bark. It has so much character. Doesn't take long to lay it in. And in the background, we can get some distant trunks back in there. See, all this stuff in the background is just kind of support material for what we've got going on with these aspen trees. So far, I don't think that a dark ground, the underpinning, has hurt at all. It's worked maybe to help out what we've got going on down here. Now I'm laying this paint on pretty thick, because if I was out in the field, I would have to be painting this thickly just to get it done. And again, if I was out in the field, it could be that I'm doing a painting that I would use as a sketch to bring back. Just trying to get the value established on how dark is dark. It might be a little too dark. It needs to be obvious these trees are back in the shadows. See, I kind of like the darkness of that. All right, let me try to get some texture in these trees here. Interesting. Yeah, this is very interesting. I like it. Yeah. Very interesting. I think you get some of the black scars in there. This is really thick, luscious paint. Yeah, I'm liking this. Yeah, don't get too hung up on the details. Just give a suggestion. Keeps it, in my mind, just keeps it, it's not necessary. Not necessary. It has been said, and I believe it wholeheartedly, that the human mind is fully capable of filling in the gaps, the blanks. And last time I used this rigger brush liner, what do they call it, black gold. It does pretty good for drawing in these fine line branches. If you've ever been out in the aspen groves, they're just, you look up in the air and these twigs, these branches are just everywhere, crisscrossing. Just randomly stroked. See all that detail I didn't bother with in the background there. Doesn't make a whole lot of difference at this point. It's not needed. Because all your attention is up front. Well, that's where I want it to be. So we're getting kind of to the point here where it's just a lot of little detail. Sometimes it takes a long time to get to this point, but this is where the frosting is on the cake. There's some of those leaves. Well, gosh, folks, I'm not sure what else I'd do. What do you think? What else would you like to see? You know, as I go through these paintings, if you ever have any questions about what I've done, leave them in the comments. If you can pinpoint what part of the video it was in, that could help. Well, as always, I appreciate your watching. And I think at this point, I'm going to just study it for a little while and see if we got it done. What I've overlooked. Well, I could see something there. I knew this would happen. If you're observant, when you get out in the woods, be observant. Look around. Pay attention. Again, pretty thick paint. But I like it. Now those might be a little too bright. So just get back in the gray. It doesn't require a whole lot. Just a little bit of detail carries the painting. Remember that. But now see how this edge in here, it's not real clean cut. Oh, this is bark. These trees are rough. They've got texture. Yeah, that's what it needed. Well, the question of whether it is finished or not, I think that's my choice, and I'm gonna call it done. So let's take a look at what we got here. I took the photo that we started with, and I just used that as an idea. And what was important about that photo was the color, the oranges. But more importantly for me was these tree trunks, these aspens that are in the foreground, and then there was some distance and little bits of sky. I could, in fact, I think I'll do that. Add a little more, few more sky holes up there, a little bit of that blue sky poking through. But the whole idea of what I wanted to accomplish was the darkness of these foreground aspen in the shade, close to us, and using that to create the distance in an aspen forest. And this is maybe a little bit of a hillside with the shadows here, and a little bit of a flat down there. I don't know. I think I pulled off. What do you see? Tell me in the comments what you see. How did that work? Did I get it done? All right. Oh, the sky holes. Yeah. Okay. Let me do that, and I'll just hold the camera here. A little bit of titanium white and cobalt blue. Not too much, because I don't want to make it look polka dot. A little something to break up the density. All right, I'm going to call it good. This time for real. All right, thanks guys for coming along. Appreciate it. Well, here's that little painting I just did. I found a frame, and I think it's going to be just fine. I want to tell you people how much I appreciate you watching my videos. The YouTube channel is taking off, and that's something I'm looking forward to and counting on. And I'm so happy I can share through that platform, that I can share what I do with you guys. And if you ever have any questions, leave them in the comments, and I'll try to get to them as I can. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it.